Hey everyone, Stephanie Lucrecio coming to you live. I want to first, before we get into any politics, send a huge heartfelt thank you to every single person who sent me a message, who sent prayers and good wishes to my mom. I wanted to report back that we got great news today, so the prayers definitely did help. My mom's MRI came back and she is still cancer-free, thank the Lord. So I wanted to thank each and every one of you because I could not believe the overwhelming response of all the people. And I do believe so strongly in the power of prayer. It is one of the things that most certainly gets me through some of the tough times. So with that being said, it's a great transition into what we're dealing with today, because we've definitely been living through some tough times here in 2020, this last 7-8 months. Hey, everybody that's joining. So good to see all of you. We've been living through some tough times. We've had lockdowns. We've had restrictions. There's been anger. There's been separation. There's been violence. There's been deadly beetles. Like, pretty much 2020 has brought the wrath, and we've all been just trying to do the very best that we can. And I know in times of elections that there's a lot of political separation. There's a lot of people who have different opinions. You pick a team and you kind of stick with that team. So I felt that the conversation that I'm about to have today was very well timed and super important for the climate that we're living in. I want to first preface this by saying that I've never been a political person. I never followed politics. I voted for the first time in 2008 for Barack Obama because I was super inspired by what he had to say. I did not vote in 2012 because I did not feel confident about any of the candidates. And in 2016, I voted for Donald Trump strictly because I did not like Hillary Clinton and I didn't know what he was going to do. So I want to preface it by saying that I've never been on a team, quote unquote. I will, however, say that recent events with medical freedom issues, constitutional rights being stripped from us, and other things that have been happening in the year of 2020 and the year previous to this has definitely made me understand that there is a certain party that has not been on my side when it comes to the issue that is of importance to me. And one of the things that I want to point out to people is that without bodily sovereignty, without the ability to make decisions about your own health care, about what enters into your body or does not enter into your body, there are bigger problems than any of the other things that we're dealing with right now. And we know from the own emissions of people who are running, Biden and Harris have said over and over again that mask mandates and vaccine mandates are coming if they go into office. And I, for one, am like super terrified. But the thing that I think that has surprised me the most is some of the conversations I've had with fellow medical freedom warriors, people that I've stood with in Trenton, who are allowing the indoctrination process that is happening inside of the mainstream media to create this emotional feeling about President Trump, to make them vote for someone who is going to ultimately do harm to them and their family. Because if medical freedom is an issue for you, they've made clear where they stand on this. And many people are voting based on the feeling of not liking the other candidate. And I've been really surprised to see that. So I wanted to have a conversation today with one of my favorite people. And we spoke about this last week at great length, and I said, Kevin, we have to do this on a live. So I'm really happy to bring in my friend, my brother from another mother, my partner in crime at Urban Global, Kevin Jenkins. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, hello. I just had a great interview with Stu and Terry. It was super. It was wonderful, actually.
It was so great. So great. So I know that you've coming off of talking for a little while, so hopefully you've had a chance to get some water and like get yourself together. I know you're like me; you could just keep going.
No, I didn't get any water. Guess what? I don't need any water. I'll be running to the bathroom.
Okay, that's all right. You need
no, I'm fine. How are you doing this morning, Stephanie? It's great to hear about your mom.
Yes, I was so happy to hear about it. I did not sleep a wink last night. Thank the Lord for concealer, because I literally had like crippling anxiety. Just thinking about, like, she's had some issues with, she had breast cancer back in December, and she went through her radiation treatment, and she's still experiencing some symptoms in the breast that she had the treatment on. So we were concerned, but thankfully we got really good news today. God is good. And she is a warrior. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Like, I draw so much strength from her. So I knew it was going to be good, but I just needed to hear the words. So I'm very happy.
That's super. You made my day today. Listen, I woke up. I couldn't walk today. I normally do 5 miles a day. And Susan called me. She said, how you feeling? I said, I feel horrible. I can't go out. You know what I mean? I like to go outside and get some good headspace and meditate and stay single focused. But now this is good news. I mean, Terry and Stu brighten my day. You're brightening my day. I'm prepared for this conversation. I think it's a timely conversation. We have 20 some odd days, maybe 20 days before the next election. And I think that, you know, in this country we live in and what I'm seeing around the world, this is probably, without a shadow of a doubt, and I know you hear this a lot, this is one of the most important elections of our time.
100%.
And, you know, I've been in and out of politics all of my life. You know, I would consider myself to be an insider. And what I'm seeing now, what the political process has become, what our government has become, what our government leaders have become, you know, what people are doing to themselves by following some of these edicts that are occurring in our community right now based on this weaponized virus. I call it the weaponized virus, you know, this weaponized virus that has been used to take away our medical freedoms, you know, take away our human autonomy, you know, take away our, you know, our religious freedoms. You know, all of these things are in the balance now, you know, to right to breathe, to right to move, the right not to have your body commoditized by another group, you know, the right to have an effective government that works on your behalf. And what I'm seeing, this tribalism that's going on now is mental illness at a whole nother level to me. I'm not uncomfortable with people having different points of view. I'm not uncomfortable with people being a part of different parties. I'm not uncomfortable with that. That doesn't frighten me. But now what's being interjected in it is an insidiousness that I have not seen up close and personal in a long time. So if you were born in the 1930s and 1940s, you saw it. If you were born in the 1960s, I was born in 1963. So I was born in the middle of a storm and a transformational period in this country. But when you talk about tyranny, you know, coming out of Reconstruction, coming out of slavery, coming, you know, out of Jim Crow, and then, you know, being met with coming out of Reconstruction, then being met with Jim Crow, and then in the 21st century, you know, Jim Crow 2.0, which is the commoditization of our body with medical, with big pharma and big tech. But before that, the commoditization of our body with the prison industrial complex, and that was a whole nother form of slavery that I don't believe Black Americans are spending enough time trying to remember. We can go back and harken back to slavery, you know, 1619, harken back to, you know, Jim Crow, harken back to the dark days of the South, harken back to when we had to fight for our civil rights. But right now, civil rights, our human rights, the right to breathe, the right to be free is right now happening all over again. And I don't think Black Americans are paying close attention because they're bought somebody else's narrative. You know, they're what somebody else's, you know, struggle, when in fact, these are just two powerful forces fighting each other for whatever groups of people that can give them the ability to have power. But the group that I've been paying close attention to, now this is the most frightening thing, the group that I've been paying close attention to that's been participating and helping these industries to control our body, to commoditize our body, to take our medical freedoms away from us, to take our hope, is the Democratic Party. Now, I got to tell you something. I think that Democrats, when they hear a Black man say that, they say, well, that can't be true. But when I started traveling around the country and I started listening to who was pushing these mandatory vaccine bills, and when I started listening to what they were saying about the fact that we should not have the right to protect our body, that we should not have the right to protect our body from the continued commoditization of our body between big pharma and big tech, I was mortified. I was actually like, wait a minute, these are Black people that are participating in this discussion. These are Black people that are portraying their community. Now, I'm quite sure you can have that discussion in your community, Stephanie, and somebody can have that discussion in the Jewish community or Italian community. But I'm saying for Black Americans to be sitting down across the table with Big Pharma, knowing all of the chronic illness we have in our community, knowing all of the other social ills we have in our community, knowing all the comorbidity and pre-existing issues we have, I was completely mortified.
So I want to go back for a second. First of all, do me a favor, just like take a towel or something. I feel like your camera's foggy.
Okay, maybe it's this new camera I have.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but if you want to just take a little towel, I feel like you're
foggy. I could do it. Give me 1 second.
So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to Kevin was him and I had an amazing conversation the other day. And like me, he's not married to any specific party. So I found it really intriguing when him and I started talking about what's happened in these last 4 years. Let me say.
Is
Better.
it better?
Better. Thank you.
We were toying with it today, so that's why. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's good. So, yes, Cami Girl is here. So one of the things that I found really interesting is you've had quite a journey these last couple of years. You said that in 2016, when Trump was elected, that you wrote off the Republican Party, you were done, you were infuriated, you were completely anti-Trump. And the surprising thing is over these last almost 4 years now, you've actually gotten on the Trump train, and it's due to the things that he's done for what you've said to be Black America. And I had a conversation with my cousin this morning, who's actually on this live. Hi, Jack. And her and I, we're the two people that are on opposite sides of the spectrum with certain things, but we're able to have conversations that actually we can listen to each other and we can hear the other person's point of view and respect where we're coming from. So I told her about you, and I wanted her to hear what you had to say, because you know, I've had conversations with her about, tell me what Biden has done for Black America. And, you know, that conversation is something that doesn't really get a whole lot of response. I'm finding that most people that are for Biden are just against Trump. So I want you to answer two questions. The first question is, can you speak to what Trump specifically has done for Black America?
Well, I have to break it down a little bit better than that.
Go for it.
Okay, so let's just talk about public policy, right? So when I'm looking at a candidate, be it Republican or Democrat, because I've had the pleasure of supporting Democrats and Republicans. I just supported this Republican governor of New Jersey, and I want to apologize to all of America. I made a mistake. My family made a mistake, and whatever I can do to make it up to you, I will. So I come from a family that understands politics and understands the business of politics and understands the impact of public policy. So when Trump became the president, I didn't feel confident that the Republican Party really understood the issues that were happening in my community. Now, I can get into what the Democrats don't know. I'm going to get into that. I can have that discussion. But because I have been a Republican all of my life, I've helped Republican governors, I've helped Democratic governors, I've helped Democratic legislators and Republican legislators. I'm always looking for the candidate that's willing to have a bigger conversation about the things that are happening where I live at, where I breathe at, where I do business at. So I'm comfortable with moving back and forth. But I must say this, from a public policy perspective, Donald Trump did not do what I thought he was going to do. He did not come into office and create public policy that was going to have an adverse effect, a negative effect on the Black community. What he did do, he did put an additional $8,000 in Black families' pockets and all other Americans' pockets that were below a certain economic stratus, in a certain economic space. He did do that. So I can't lie as a human being and as a politically savvy person. And when I come to understanding public policy, I can't lie. He did do that. Now, you will have somebody on the Democrat side because they don't understand truth anymore. It's just a narrative that's been sold to them. They'll say that's not true. Well, then you have no credibility to me. That's a fact. I cannot say that he was not the person that came into office and signed the bill that started to release Black men and women out of prison that has not been done before. He did that. He did not have to do that because the Black community did not vote for this man. I left the party because of this man. He did that. I cannot say that when those Black college presidents were going back and forth to the White House for the last 20 years, begging for money, and the second time that they came back to visit him, he said, "Why are you here? Why are you sitting with me? You shouldn't have to do this every year. I'm gonna fund you for 10 years, fully fund you for 10 years. I can't say as a person that's about school choice, right, giving my kids and children in my community access to a quality education, that he was against that. He didn't do anything to change that. Now, I don't agree with Betsy DeVos's, all of her stuff she's doing as a head of education, but I knew he could have done something even more horrible to us and took that choice away from us. So I can't say that he's not settled and done a great job and bringing together the Middle East, everybody in the Middle East, to have a bigger conversation about how we help the Palestinians and how we push down all of this negative stuff that's happened over the last several decades. I could go on and on and on. I can't say that he didn't go into North Korea and play the politics he needed to play to make sure they didn't move forward on their developing a nuclear arsenal. I could probably go on and on and on. So I'm saying to myself, as a person with a brain a person that is not in a tribe of chaos that I can say he didn't do what I thought he was going to do. Now, when it comes to the issue that I care so much about, my medical freedoms, my religious freedoms, my constitutional rights, right? My right to be able to breathe. I think that earlier on when he started having because I've been tracking him and what he believed 20 years ago, 15 years ago about vaccines, but he could have done something even worse as the president of the United States of America. He could have agreed with big pharma and big tech. I know what kind of political game he's playing because I've lived it, I've been in it, and I'm an insider. I know what he's doing. I understand it. Now, if I didn't, I can understand. If you don't, well, pay more close attention because he could have done even worse things to us, worse things to our community, worse things to the Black community. And guess what? He didn't. So now let's talk about Joe Biden from a specific public policy that impacted Black Americans. Now, hear what I'm saying to you now. Specific public policy. So Trump did not create a specific public policy to hurt Black Americans. There's now one policy that he's created that specifically targeted Black Americans in a negative way. That's a fact. Now, that's a fact. Now, I have a brain. I'm not in the herd. I'm herded like cattle. I understand the difference. So now let's talk about Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, the party that is supposed to care about my people. I dare say that that party has no compassion for me. No compassion for my community because the public policies that have been created in the last 50 years has had a negative adverse effect on my community. Now, as a Black man that's trying to save my community, that has worked in government, worked in business, understanding how to build communities, understanding how to bring hope back and bring an economic formula that will lead to some sort of sustainable growth for my community, the Democratic Party has done a horrible job. Now, so let me tell you the horrible job they did. The one policy that I am never going to forgive myself and forgive them for and forgive anybody that's not talking about it because it's serious, because it eviscerated the Black family. It eviscerated the Black man and it eviscerated the Black community. It is the 1994 crime bill. It took our Black warriors off the street. It took our Black geniuses off the street. It took Black hope and shoved it down the damn toilet. Okay, that particular bill was the worst bill. That was slavery by another name like you've never seen before.
So millions that don't know what it is. Can you just explain?
The 1994 crime bill was a vehicle that we purchased that basically gave the judicial system, the police system, the governments the ability to take our Black bodies off the street and lock us up in perpetuity.
For what purpose?
Well, to make our streets safer.
Okay.
And Bill Clinton and Joe Biden was the driver because he was the main inside lobbyist as a congressman and senator, right, that participated. So our Black bodies absolutely fueled the prison industrial complex. Okay, so now that bill devastated the Black community. So here's my issue. If the Democratic Party really had compassion for my community, why would they choose someone like that to put in front of us right now at this time after coming out of the Obama era? Why would even Obama choose him now that we know his history? So let's go look now, specific public policy. So now if you track his record and his bigoted narrative of what black people are, his racist narrative, how could you say on one end, Black Lives Matter? How could you say on one end, the iconography that represents bigotry and hatred in this country, you're going to tear down all of the statues, burn up America, but you're pushing this guy? Now, that is mental illness at a whole nother level. So now as an independent, as a free thinking person, as a person that has a mind, I can make a decision. Did this guy with the red hair, did he come up and do anything to impact my community in a negative way? No. No one can answer that question. Now, you know what they say? They go back to Central Park 5. Well, guess what? That man was wrong, but he didn't create policy. That was his opinion. Then they say about his father being discriminating against Blacks. His family should be held to a standard. We should have dealt with that appropriately. I'm not supporting that. But as the president of the United States, did he draft any public policy to impact Black Americans in a negative way? Absolutely not. And not one Democrat can defend it. Now, I want to ask a question of everyone that's Black American that might be looking at this. They might not want to hear this. Before Donald Trump ran for president, everybody loved him. Everybody thought he was the greatest guy on earth. He represented success in this country. You know, a lot of people liked him, but majority of the Black community, they loved him. They wrote songs about him. They hugged him. They embraced him. They went to his events. They went to his boxing matches. They bid on his boat. They took money from the elections. But now, until the radical left said, or the oligarchs said he was bad for their business, Black Americans jumped on board and said he was a racist and a bigot and a horrible human being. But in the same spirit, they're going to vote for a guy that represents white supremacy at another level. He created public policy to eviscerate the Black family, the Black man, and the Black community. And the economic impact that it's had on our community, we will probably never be able to fix it for another 100 years on top of what's being done now. So now, in this new fight for our civil liberties and this new fight for our constitutional rights and all of the stuff we're fighting for right now, the number one thing he said when he got up is that I'm going to mask all of you, knowing that there's no need for that, knowing that that's not protect us from a virus, knowing that that's not something he should do. The next thing he said is basically he's going to turn over my Black body, your body, and all of my children's body to an industry, right, that is now geared towards doing what? Commoditizing our bodies, taking our religious freedoms, our medical freedoms, our constitutional rights. So now, as a free-thinking individual, I have to say, wait a minute, this guy didn't turn out the way I thought he was going to turn out. This guy did not do what I thought he was going to do. Because if he did, I would be his number one enemy. I would be the first person out there in front of the line saying, this guy must go. So the only reason Black Americans are saying he must go is not because he created effective a policy that impacted their lives negatively. They're listening to a group of people that over 50 years have shown them no compassion. None. From the 1960s to the 1970s to the 1980s to the 1990s and to the present moment. Now, that's logically thinking.
Mainstream media is painting him as a racist, that he supports white supremacy, he supports the KKK. I mean, what would you say to people that say that by voting for him, you're voting for systemic racism? Because that's what's being said. And I'm sorry to, put you in a position to answer that, but I feel like you're a person who—
What are you apologizing for? Here's the deal. What are you apologizing for? I'm a free-thinking individual. Anybody, Black, white, Puerto Rican, that wants to dispute what I'm saying, come on the show, right? And then we can have that discussion. And I guarantee you, they're not coming on the show. They're not going to do that. Then just not going to happen. So let's just talk about what you just said. The person that best represents white supremacy is Joe Biden. The person that represents bigotry is Joe Biden. He spoke at, Bird's funeral, who was a Ku Klux Klan member. He sat in rooms with the Dixiecrats and cut deals to destroy the Black community. He passed the most horrible bill and the sponsor of one of the worst bills that eviscerated the Black family. He has a record of talking about Black Americans in a derogatory way up until this date. Just last week, he said, oh, I had this Black woman come stock my shelves. He didn't even know her name. It was like she was not even a human. Just several months ago, he says, oh, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. But can I stay there for a second?
Yes, please.
He was right, because he knows that Black Americans identify themselves more as Democrats as opposed to being Black Americans as a group. That is a problem that we have to detach ourselves from that reality. We have to push back on that. Now, there's a glimmer of hope here. Right now in this country, there are a lot of people, I'm not just going to say young people, that are asking the same question, right? So we have been herded like cattle for their power. We have manipulated our own communities, right, to be able to surrender their power to a group of people that have no compassion. Now, here's their argument. Well, the Republican Party, they're evil. I said, well, wait a minute, time out. Everybody take a deep breath. You don't vote for the Republican Party. They don't owe you anything. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised they haven't finished us off. Think about it. The party that I thought was going to finish us off in the last 4 years actually did the opposite. They're fighting for our constitutional rights. They're fighting for our medical freedoms, right? They're fighting for our religious freedoms, right? They're fighting for us to breathe fresh air. They're fighting against all of these mandates. Now, if it was on the flip side, I would be having a different conversation, Stephanie. I would be having a different kind of conversation. So anybody Black American that wants to dispute what I'm saying, any far left radical that wants to dispute what I'm saying, guess what? I'm more than welcome to have this conversation, because the only community that thrives in this argument are the super rich, the people that control all of these institutions, the people that have continued to commoditize off my Black body. I'm a Black American in this country still fighting for its full citizenship. Every other group in this in this country has grown and evolved, and their groups are thriving. In my community, the people that I come from, who built this country, the body that commoditized the growth of this transcendent democracy, are still fighting for our full citizenship. So if we're with a party and we're giving 95% of our vote to and our power, because we're giving our power away, we're not negotiating our power, which is our fault, that says a lot about us.
Well, it's funny because the relationship between Black America and the Democratic Party has been often described as like an abusive relationship. Like, we just keep believing that they stand for something, that they're going to do something, and we keep getting a lot more of the same, which is a whole lot of nothing. I mean, what I loved most about what Donald Trump said during the debates was, I've done more in 47 months than you've done in 47 years. And it's confusing to me how people are putting so much energy into just disliking a person. Like, let's just break it down. I don't love Donald Trump as a human being. I think that he's an egotistical guy. I think that he has no filter. And his own daughter said that his communication style is not for everybody. And it's definitely not for me. Like, there are times where he speaks that I cringe because I'm like, oh God, just stick to the teleprompter. So, I'm very happy to admit that as a human, there are things that I would like to work on. I think he needs yoga. I think he needs to work on non-reactivity. I think he needs to eat better and take better care of himself and let go of looking good and being right. Like, there are a lot of tidbits of information, Mr. President, if you're listening. These are things that we can work on. I can coach you. But at the end of the day, I don't have to live with this man. I don't have to sleep with this man. I don't have to be in his company. I'm looking at the job that he's done over the past 4 years. I'm voting based on the issues that are of importance to me and my family. And without the constitutional freedom to be able to choose, to be able to breathe in fresh air, to be able to deny wanting to take a vaccine. And it's funny because someone said the other day, well, they're not going to mandate vaccines. They're just going to tell you that you can't do certain things. So I just can't be a part of society if I choose not to take the COVID vaccine or the flu vaccine or whatever 250 vaccines are in production that they decide they're going to add to the schedule. What kind of a life is that as an American citizen? So I think we need to encourage people to really go to the records of these people. And mainstream media has played such a role in this. So the fact that you and I are having this conversation as a white woman and a Black man, and we can sit down and talk about this and really air it out is such a proud moment for me, as I'm sure it is for you, because they've really tried to divide us up into these segments. You're in this box, you're in that box. We can't communicate. We can't talk. We have to hate each other because, you should be a Democrat and I should be a Republican and we can't have a conversation. And that to me is one of the biggest problems that we have in this country is we pick a team and through, we just continue to go for it. And at the end of the day, if you don't demand better from whatever party you're with and you don't hold their feet to the fire to say, hey, this is why I'm voting for you. This is what I'm expecting from you. And if you don't do it, I'm taking you out. So, I think for me, the conversation that I also want to talk about with you is not only Biden, but let's look at Kamala Harris. That woman, when I watch her on the debates, like, she exudes pure, unadulterated evil. And I can just feel it oozing out of her pores. It's funny because her and Hillary Clinton both have the same, like, shit-eating grin that they put on, that it's like a smile, but really it's just like this evil grin that comes on, and it's filled with so much hate and anger. I can't explain it.
Well, let me give you some history.
Yes, please.
I started this conversation off with you by saying that, I've supported Democrats and I've supported Republicans, right? Financially, I've given them access to our family. I've given them access to our friends. Bill and Hillary Clinton, 5 or 6 years ago, I would have said was a friend. And what I've seen in the last 5 years, I'm disgusted by. And I got to tell you, I think Hillary is a very, very brilliant woman. I think that her perspective is very skewed right now. And if she ever ran for president or dog catcher, I would never vote for her. I would never vote for her. I'm seeing up close and personal. I'm spending a lot of time in a space that I didn't want to spend time in. And I got to tell you something. I'm gravely disappointed in what they have become. They are the tools of the oligarchs. They don't care about my freedoms. They talk a good game, but they do not care about me as an individual. And I'm a person that, like both of them, Hillary has been to my home. I've been with Bill Clinton several times. I've grown up in this system, and I've helped to finance and I've some of these people. And you know what? At the time when I was a part of it, and I'm still a part of it, I have a difference of opinion. That is what happens when you evolve and grow as a human being. But let me tell you about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, I don't know if you've been watching her for the last couple of years. I don't know who the woman is, right? I don't know who she is politically. I don't know what she believes in, but all I can do is tell you about her behavior. As the prosecutor, as a attorney general, state attorney general, she weaponized the 1994 crime bill in California, knowing that there's been a move away from that. Mass incarceration was never the right way. Never the right way. We made a mistake. We have to admit it. But she didn't admit the mistake. She weaponized it. She went after single moms. She went after young black men. She did not use the law in a fair way that gave those young men and women that she was targeting, black young men and women that she was targeting, a gateway out of the hell that they were in. There is nothing that has come out of her mouth. And I watched this last debate. I was forced to go back and watch it. I don't really watch debates. And I watched Pence and I watched her. She didn't say anything that gave me a deeper understanding that she learned from her mistakes. That she learned, she couldn't even admit that what she did was wrong. Now, I've admitted to you that I left the Republican Party because of Donald Trump. Now, are Black Americans ready to admit that we made a mistake with our love affair with the Democratic Party? Now, here's a woman that one day she's Indian, one day she's Asian, one day her voice elocution changes when she's in various communities, and that little smile she does and that little thing she does, that clearly tells me she has no depth. Now, some people say, oh, she's a woman. Well, wait a minute. I've been married to an elected official for 25 years. I know what a Black woman is capable of doing in working her community and fighting for her community, making a safe place for women to work, making sure that young kids have clean drinking water, to make sure that families around this country and this state have effective housing, understanding what effective. I live with one. I live with a Black woman that has fought for 25 years before she became elected, and her family fought for 50 years to build the city that we live in. Right. So I understand. I've been in the rooms with effective elected officials and people that can lead. She's not one of those people. She's not that person. She is going. Now, listen, here's the problem. Now, the people in our movement, they got to get past their emotional turmoil, because I know you're feeling bad because you voted Democrat all your life and you feel as though that they are the party of the people. They are not. They are the party of big tech and big pharma. Now, some people are going to say, well, the Republicans are too. Well, I'm not disputing that. But I'm saying right now, the Republican parties are not turning over our bodies to big pharma and big tech. And the new friend that we have, the new enemy that we have, is the education cartel. Yeah. So we got to understand, we have to make our decisions based on where we sit, where we breathe, where we live, and we have to tell the truth about that. So think about Kamala Harris. Think about what she did to the Black community in California. Think about how she rose through the ranks. Think about how she shape-shifted her identity from the time that she was born. But there's something even more scarier that you have to all understand. She is now, through legislation, fighting every day to take our religious exemptions away from us. Right now, she is fighting every single day to turn over our bodies to big pharma and big tech. Not to talk about her husband, but her husband represents Merck.
I was just going to say that. Yes, that's an important thing to note. So
black people that are listening to this, forget about her other crimes against humanity. She is preparing for the ultimate crime against humanity, to turn over our bodies to those industries, to take away our religious freedoms, to take away our medical freedoms, to take away our limited constitutional rights that we have as Black Americans, to take our bodies and turn them over to the education cartel so they can further map out a strategy to destroy the humanity of our children. She said nothing against that. She said that she didn't stand up and say, I'm going to fight for your medical freedoms, fight for your religious freedoms, fight for the democracy that our Black bodies helped to build, and this transformative democracy that we were the fuel to drive it. She said nothing, absolutely nothing. So now, if you are a supporter of hers because she looks Black, if you're a supporter of hers because she's created some policies that affected us in a positive way, please put it in the feed. Please tell me. Please show me. Because I listened to her. I went back and listened to her because I wanted to make sure that I was not going to misrepresent what I was going to say on this show. She does not represent the Black community whatsoever. What she has represented is big tech and big pharma. What she has represented is special interests to take the what's left of my rights, my constitutional rights, my limited full citizenship. She has worked tirelessly for other groups and has never worked tirelessly for my group.
And the district that she represents in California is a nightmare. I mean, I've seen pictures of it. Like it's not a place that you can be proud of to say, wow, look at how I've turned this community around. Look at everything that I've done. It's poverty stricken, the homelessness, the filth. It's crazy.
Well, but let me just tell you this though. The homelessness, the filth, and all of those things that are happening in these major cities, I'm not going to lay at her feet, but let me tell you whose feet I'm going to lay it at. Every Black elected official, every Black elected council person, every Black administrator, every Black anybody that's been running these cities, the ones that are in charge, right? And there's a small few now. I want to say this. There's like a half of a percent of Black elected officials in this country that work every day against that system. You have to understand there's a small group like Jamel Holly and like Gail. There's only a small group in this country that are fighting against their colleagues to make our communities better. Because majority of the Black elected officials in this country and the Black leaders in this country don't want to take responsibility for what has happened in their own neighborhoods. I cannot have a conversation about white supremacy and systemic racism and all of the stuff that I know to be true, but unless I have an internal assessment about what Black Americans have supported white supremacy, what Black Americans have supported systemic racism, because we've been in charge of our own community. There's been trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that have been invested in these communities, and look what it looks like at this present moment. Now, you're going to have some people say what they normally say. They're going to harken back to 1619, and I'm quite aware of 1619. I'm quite aware of slavery. I am grounded in my Blackness. I am grounded in my Black history. I am a builder in my community, not a participant. I am not a government elected official that sits in a room and engage in minutia or continue to engage in selling garbage as hope. Okay, so don't even go there with me. Because majority of you don't even have to understand the arc of history, understand the arc of being a Black American, understand the arc of our experience in this world. Because if you did, you would be just as outraged as I am about what's happening in Africa, what's happening on our corners, what's happening in our schools, what's happening in our neighborhoods, what's happening in our houses. I gave some staggering statistics, and this is what came out of the 1994 crime bill, Jim Crow 2.0. I gave some staggering statistics on Anton Willis' show, The Voice of the People, about the effects of not having Black men in the home. The damage that is done to our Black communities, the damage that is done to our Black boys and Black girls, the economic damage that is had on our children. The main piece, the architect of that bill, Joe Biden, should not be representing us in the marketplace of politics. He should not be leading the party that says they care about us, because he has absolutely been opposed to that. He's been opposed to the Black man being in a household. Look at the 50 years of public policy that has been created to destroy the Black family. Yeah. I got 3,000 books here. You want to go through the books? Let's go through the books. And I'll show you chapter and verse of what has happened to Black Americans, the failed public policies that we've accepted, right? The herd mentality that we've been engaged in that has destroyed the social fabric of our communities. Now, I want to give you a little bit of history, Stephanie, because you don't know this. I grew up in a community of builders. I grew up in a community of people that cared about their children. I grew up in a community of people that cared about education. I grew up in a community of people that valued ownership. So that makes me an anomaly now in my own community, because that's not something I should be talking about right now. I should be talking about white supremacy. I should be talking about systemic racism. Now, they gave us permission to talk about it, to distract us from the real issues that are impacting us on a daily basis. I am not suggesting that those are not present realities, but economic empowerment, ownership, quality education, quality education now, we got to be clear, is not the gateway to financial success, but it gives you the ability to be able to grasp these concepts and understand the value that you have, that you can bring back to your community and bridge that relationship between education, growth, and economic empowerment. They have us now not focused on that. They have us focused on white supremacy. They have us focused on Columbus Day. They have us focused on, they have your white community talking about white privilege. Well, you're never going to give up your white privilege, and I don't care if you do or not. I'm talking about black privilege. I've been running the largest cities in America, and I want some black privilege. What's wrong with that? I'm sorry, what is wrong with that? I want black privilege. But you know what my black elected officials have been doing? They've been giving every other community to thrive in these communities privilege and not giving us access to privilege. So when you hear the governor of New Jersey talking about baby bonds, I want to throw up.
Everything.
That's another discussion. But listen to what I'm trying to say. This is a very uncomfortable conversation that a lot of men before me, Martin Luther King said it, Malcolm X said it, Fannie Lou Hamer said it. I can go on. I am not the first black human being that's questioning our ideology and theology and our acceptance of the Democratic Party. I am not the first one. It's thousands of them. The ones that they celebrate every year said the same thing. Martin Luther King said, King and the Other America. Martin Luther King was talking about economics for Black Americans. Civil rights was not enough. Now, let me tell you why. All of the civil rights bills that we fought for have been reversed. You know why? That's why you have the 1994 crime bill. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that. You don't have to be a special person. But what they're saying about me and people like me, oh, Kevin should not be saying that. I'm saying it, absolutely saying it, because I'm an investor in my community, not a bystander. My family doesn't live off the dole. We're not lifetime government employees. We help to build our city. Now, I'm not saying lifetime government employees are bad. I'm saying what's bad are local elected officials that don't serve their people well at the legislative level, at the local level, at the federal level, and at the judicial level. We have dropped the ball. Now, Stephanie Lucrezio, you're not to blame for that. Now, there's a book out, The Madness of the Crowds. I want everybody to get this book.
Ooh, I love this. Okay, I'm going to type it in the comments.
The Madness of the Crowds.
All right, I got it.
By Douglas Murray. Now, the reason I bring up and I always show books is because when I have these conversations with you, it's just not off the cuff. You know, I'm not an off the cuff guy. I can riff a little bit, but I'm not off the cuff. You have to have context, and you have to have an understanding of history, and you have to look past your deep denial and say, we have dropped the ball. You have to look past your black denial and say, we have to take more responsibility of what's happening in our square. We have to get past our black denial and say that we have been voting the wrong way. We should not be voting and giving our power away. We should be negotiating and advancing our power. Right? So now anybody that suggests anything differently is the enemy of the state, the enemy of my community. I don't want to spend another decade analyzing white frailty. I already stand there. Some white people in this country that are going to say, wait a minute, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but you have to understand the system that was created. And guess what? I don't want to give you any credit for creating it because that's way over your pay grade. But we already understand. I'm saying, when I see white people, oh my God, I'm my white privilege. Are really seriously, really, are we going to have this conversation? What about us working together to build a better society? What about us working together and saying, corporate America, we're not going to purchase any of your goods, or if you're engaged in white supremacy with your corporate policies? I don't want to hear government officials in corporate America telling me, oh, we're going to invest $100 million in dealing with diversity. Oh, come on. That's the biggest con job ever. That's the biggest con job ever.
But we've become such a gullible society. Like, we take everything that's given to us in mainstream media as gospel and we run with it. And it's clear to me, and I don't know how at this point it's not clear to everybody, that the only purpose that mainstream media serves is to divide us, to keep us in fear, to keep us unhealthy, and to make sure that they set it up so that government can now be involved in every decision and every aspect of your life.
Government as we know it is over. It's been hijacked by big pharma, big tech, and all of these special interests. The global marketplace that we operate right now is a complete alignment against our humanity. It's a complete alignment against our God species. Look, they're saying that group now. See, now that is white supremacy. See that right there. Now that group is saying that you, and all of us don't matter.
Right.
They wealth do. See, if we have the right conversation, all of it is our enemy. Not just mine, it's all of our enemy. And see, certain groups are starting to figure that out now. It's just not a black issue, it's all of our issues. Your medical freedoms, your right to breathe, your human, your ability to be a human, your ability to socialize, your ability to work, your ability to travel. Welcome to slavery, Stephanie. Yeah. Welcome to slavery. I'm glad. Look, I don't want you to have to join it, but I'm letting you know this is what it looks like. So I know what it means for my body not to be able to go from one jurisdiction to the next. I know what it means when the sun goes down that I have to be locked in some place and hope that I'm not killed. I understand when I'm building economic power that they can come and take that away from us. And so you got to understand, see what you can do and I can do. We can learn from each other and I can teach you what it really looks like. And so when you see it in real time. You see it in real time.
But so the problem is that people are complacent in thinking that it could never happen in this country. It could never happen where we'll be in a situation that we're mandated to take something that we don't want to take, or we're stifled and censored and kept inside of a house because of our status medically, or tracked or traced. People can't comprehend that the freedom that we have is there because we've demanded it and fought for it all these years throughout all different periods in history. It's not just something that is there for the taking. We have to stay a part of the conversation and stay involved, holding these legislators accountable and letting them know.
No, I beg to differ. I don't think we need to hold the elected officials responsible. We need to hold ourselves responsible.
Well, accountable.
It's us. We form the government. They're only there because of us. So everything that they take away from us, we're allowing. If they're taking our way to breathe, we're allowing it. If they're taking away our ability to move, we're allowing it. If they're now telling us they're going to turn our bodies into a business or commoditizing our bodies for big pharma and big tech and the education cartel to further destroy our kids, we're allowing it. It goes back to what I'm saying about my community. See, no, there is no splitting hairs on this. Just like I'm saying,
it's for the greater good. You know, the government is doing all of this for the greater good, to protect humanity. So this is what people truly believe. I mean, the crazy thing is, yesterday or over the weekend, the CDC came out with a smaller study of people who wore masks versus those who didn't wear masks. And what they found was 70% of people who wore the mask all the time were more likely to contract COVID. And I think it was the gradient went all the way down to 3% of people who wore masks never would get COVID. And the crazy thing is, even when you get data from the CDC, who has been, you know, the trusted source of information throughout this last 6 to 8 months of this pandemic that we're living in, all of a sudden now they're trying to poke holes in the data that the CDC is coming out with, because it doesn't serve the narrative of perpetuating this fear thing that we have to live in, to perpetuating, you know, it's like, well, you know, it's a small study, but what studies have been done on wearing a mask, period, end of story? Who has studied the long-term effects of mask?
Can I tell you something, Stephanie?
Yes.
You are 100% correct, but we're fighting a different monster now. That is their job, to split hairs, and that's their job to confuse the marketplace. That's their job. But here's something that great is happening at this moment. You and I are having this conversation in real time. And there's a lot of people in this country, in this world, that are asking the same questions. And there's a big pushback. This industry, those industries locked together, have spent $1 trillion to communicate a lie, and we're winning. Mm-hmm. We're winning. But we have to know that just winning now, we have to finish the job. So in my community, in your community, in other communities, the Jewish community, the Greek community, the Buddhist community, we have to know that we have one single fight on our hand, and that is to save our humanity. Humanity. This is beyond, this is about humanity. This is about our connection to God.
Mm-hmm.
It is about what community represents to us. And so when we keep it in the political space, we kind of diminish the power that we really, really have. We have enormous power, but we are now allowing these two crazy groups, these radical, crazy people that have amassed all of this wealth that we have allowed them to, Facebook, Google, Twitter, all of these people that we've given out information to, and they're using that information to control our bodies, to manipulate our minds, to destroy our children. So just like we gave them the power, we should be willing to take the power back. But you know what's wrong with society now? We're lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like my grandmother would say to me, Kevin, I don't like trifling kids. We've become trifling and lazy, and we don't want to do the work. My grandmother used to say to me all the time, Kevin, I can't stand a lazy person. I can't stand a trifling person. In the Black community, you call somebody trifling, that is rough. That is brutal, Stephanie. But guess what? We're lazy. We don't want to do the work. We see what's happening to our children. We're not saying anything. We're not fighting back fast enough. That indoctrination is going to take years to reverse. And in the Black community, my message to you is to take off your blinders, take a deep breath, get past your Black denial, because the people that you have representing you, the people that you think are representing you, they don't work for you. They work for the oligarchs. They work for Big Pharma and Big Tech. They now have cut the deal with their education cartel. Your children, your breath, your life, your freedom means nothing to them. And guess what? We deserve every pain we get if we don't go and drag them out together. Yeah. We need to drag them out together. So now what they're saying is if Kevin Jenkins is against the Democratic Party, I'm voting for Trump. See, this is a psychological, you got to understand the mental illness. It's insidious and how ignorant it is. So yeah. I'm arguing against a group that's never shown me any compassion. I'm arguing against a group and fighting against a group that passed legislation to eviscerate the Black community. I'm fighting against Black elected officials that I know personally that are the most incompetent and impotent people, because all I got to do is go look outside my window and see what has been done to these communities. Now, I have served with great Black mayors. I have seen some great Black mayors when I was growing up do some great work, but those people don't exist anymore. I'm telling you right now, what you see right now is the worst example. Right. And I got to say this because I've been in those rooms, the worst example of leadership I've ever seen in my lifetime. And yeah. Why they are still around is because Black denial is in our DNA. We just don't want to tell the truth. So how can I, as a Black American male, go into the voting booth and vote for a Joe Biden? It is sacrilegious. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with this, Stephanie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to leave you with this, but I'm going to give you a little story. I hope I do it well today, because sometimes I get it all mixed up. So you've never been enslaved before. Your ancestors came to this country later to really benefit from this transcendent democracy. But I'm quite sure your parents could tell you about stuff that happened in their homeland, happened in their country.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a slave in the early 1800s, early 70s. I'm a slave. And I am now set free. Lincoln has now set me free. And I am now living in a community or in a city during the Reconstruction period, where I had unprecedented growth, economics, education, medicine, science, because I can go and do a whole history lesson for you of what happened during the Reconstruction period and why it went away and who was responsible for doing it. But to stay on message, I am a Black American living in a former slave, living in a town, and my ex-slave master runs for office. Runs for office.
Okay.
The question to every Black American, based on what I just said, from a public policy perspective, that same slave master, as a slave, would you vote for it, Steph? Would you vote for that person, Stephanie?
No.
Okay, so now let me stop you right there. So a person that's created public policy to enslave me, Jim Crow 2.0, right? That was the main architect of it. Because remember in 2016, a lot of people attacked Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton about it. But now, miraculously, they're not going to attack this guy. So how could you, now you just answered the question. You said no, right?
Hell no.
Okay, you said hell no.
Hell no.
So I'm saying hell no. And every Black American should be offended that this particular party that has been conning them for the last 50 years would even dare suggest putting somebody up like that, and then getting the woman that has been saying that she's a part of our community, and what she's done is she's been the agent and the person that further weaponized that bill to diminish us even more. So you got two war criminals, two slave masters. One is a slave master and one is an agent. And you're going to vote for that person, and you're going to say that I'm terrible for suggesting that. Oh, come on, folks. Come on, folks. Come on, folks. Come on. Come on. You gotta be kidding me. So you answered the question. So now, when I ask that question of my friends, the ones I have left, they can't answer the question.
I know about that. Yeah.
Wait a minute. But I'm comfortable with that. I'm cold-blooded comfortable with that, because I don't want any. And look, we're in a civil war now. People think it's going to be a physical civil war. We're in a civil war right now, the conscious and unconscious.
Yes.
The conscious and unconscious. We are in a civil war. That's why our mainstream media, Big Pharma News and Big Tech News, is trying to manipulate us every day, every single day. Guess what? And there's some people are starting to pick up on it and say, look, all they do is talk about Trump all day, but they're not talking about what's happening in South Africa. They're not talking about the poverty all around the world. They're not talking about what the lockdowns have done mentally to our kids and families. They're not talking about the fact that some of these families not paying their bills. They don't have a job left. They don't have anything. All because of a fake virus that has now been politically weaponized. Now, let me tell you what I mean by fake. We're going to continue to have viruses all through our lives. We have had extreme viruses even worse than this. We have had lovely people die that should have never died. And we've had a lot of seniors in the last year that have died that I would have hoped would have been able to stay alive if our government didn't do what it did. I am not suggesting that people should die. I'm not suggesting that I want people to die. But this particular virus, right, has been weaponized to destroy our humanity, destroy our country, to destroy our ability to earn. They are now going to permanently make us create a welfare state that they now are going to force us and make it mandatory for us to take their dope, because the greatest dope dealer in America is Big Pharma, right? Yep. The greatest manipulator of our time is Big Tech, right? So we have to fight back. And as a group, a global group, as a world, as a community, as an individual, I think we have the ability to do that. I'm not here to chocolate cover the Democrats. I'm not here to chocolate cover Republicans, but I'm here for you to use your basic common sense. So I started this conversation off clear.
Yeah.
Tell me one public policy that Donald Trump created as the president of the United States of America in 3 years that has had an adverse effect on Black Americans, their children, their community, and their lives. Now, just stick right there.
Yep.
Tell me public policy for 47 years that after 47 years that Joe Biden created to destroy the Black community, destroy the Black man, and now destroy our Black children. Now, that is where you need to be sitting at.
Yes.
Right there. Yeah. So if you get up in the morning and you vote for him, you're not voting because you're not Black. You're voting because you're comfortable with victimhood and slavery.
Mm. Say that again.
If you vote for him, you are comfortable with victimhood and slavery. That is very difficult for people to wrap their arms around because it's so painful. But you are, because I asked the question, if you were an ex-slave and you lived in the county where your ex-slave master lives, right? The one that did the most horrible things to you in the world. Yep. Controlled your body, commoditized your body, broke up your family, destroyed your Black male, destroyed your Black family. Would you vote for him? And you said if you were in my shoes, you would vote no, right? You would not vote for that person. So I'm asking my brothers and sisters, why would you vote for your ex-slave master? And why would you vote for the woman, right, that weaponized the 1994 crime bill? So now I'm going to ask you a question as a white woman, Stephanie. Yeah. Right now, you're fighting on an issue in regards to your medical freedoms, right?
Yep.
Your religious freedoms, right? Your constitutional rights, right?
Yeah.
You're fighting against these mandatory bills. You're fighting against these legislators that don't represent you effectively.
Yes.
Right? Now, what would you do? Would you vote for those other people that are working against you, or would you drag them out? So I'm asking your community a question. Are you willing to work with my community to drag those people out, take back over our government, right? Take back over our streets, take back over our schools,
Yep.
right? Bring hope back into our communities, both embrace the tragedies that have happened to my community, embrace the things that are happening in your community to work together to get rid of these people. Because they're all working together. Now, here's very interesting. This is where we're going. You have black and white legislators working together to take all of that away from us.
Right.
So now it ain't about color. Now it's about what? It's about survival.
Yeah.
So it's great for a rich person to sit in a room and say, well, we should have a different kind of conversation about this, Well, we must really talk about what we've done to Black Americans. And, we have to do something about this white supremacy and the corporation of white. Oh, we got to do something about. But the ones we have to do something about are them.
Right. Yeah.
They're the ones that control power. They have all of the wealth. They have all of the influence. So now all of a sudden they want to come clean. It is a distraction.
It is. And it's a divisive tactic in the sense that if we were humanity, one humanity, it doesn't matter what color, what religion, what ethnicity, what, background, wherever you come from, if we all are there for the real greater good, which is keeping our humanity, keeping our constitutional freedoms, putting down our swords and stop fighting over who's right, who's wrong, who's racist, who's privileged, all these different things. The power behind a group of united citizens for the real greater good, which is preserving what this country was founded on, which is freedom. That is the thing that they do not want to happen. So how do they keep us separated? By doing all the things that we just talked about, by making it like somehow because you're Black and I'm white, we can't have this conversation. We can't be on the same page. We have to be enemies because we stand for different things. And we're here today to say that this election is about humanity. It doesn't matter what color you are, where you come from. If you want your children to grow up in the America that we know and love, a place where we're free, a place where we could speak, we can choose what goes in our body, what doesn't go in our body, all of those things. This election has never been more important. So we need to put down our swords and stop fighting with one another, because at the end of the day, that is ultimately what is going to destroy this country. And I have nightmares at night. If the two of them get in, how this country will be so very different than what we know and love. So I encourage all of you, if you're not registered to vote, I think tomorrow is the last day, or is it today?
I think it's tomorrow.
I think it's October 13th. Oh, today is October 13th, isn't it? Today is the last day. Today is the last day to register to vote. So it's very timely that we're having this conversation. If you are on this live and you are not currently registered to vote, it is time to get involved in the process. My father, who is going to be 70 years old, has never voted in his entire life. This is the first year that he will be voting, and he will be voting for President Trump because of the conversations that I've had with him, and because he knows what's at stake, not only for me, but for the future generations, my children, my child's child. Like, all of these things are at stake. So if you're in the medical freedom space and you are historically a Democrat because that's just what you know, that's just what you believe, it is so important to shift the conversation and to be able to look at it from a policy perspective, taking emotion, dislikes and likes out of the conversation and just looking at it from a place of being able to see what's there and what's not there. It has never been more important. So October 9th was the deadline in New York. New Jersey is October 13th. And Pamira was kind enough to post information in the comments. So look for Pamira. I love you, Pamira. You're always there in the background. She's amazing. So it is today. If you have not registered in New Jersey, my goal is to flip this state red. It was a very small margin, and the number of people who abstained from voting in 2016 was insane. If you are not part of this conversation, then you are part of the problem. And
Stephanie, that's a really good, I'm glad you're saying this. And I want my community to finally wake up and vote their interest, not somebody else's interest. not somebody else's interest, but your interest. Look outside your window, walk down your street, turn off your TV, and ask yourself a very important question. After 50 years of giving your power, after 50 years of listening to a group of people that have been lying to you for 50 years, because if they really cared, I would not be having this conversation with you, Stephanie. And look outside your window and make a decision. When you vote, are you voting for your interests or are you voting for their interests? And there's something that I wanted to read here. Do not obey in advance. There's this small book that I have on tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder. Most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given. In times like these, individuals think ahead about what a more repressive government will want, and then offer themselves without being asked. Think about that. Offer themselves without being asked. That's what's happening now. A citizen who adopts in this way is teaching power what it can do. So when we adopt, when we comply, we're teaching power. We're teaching the people that are advancing this tyranny what power really is. That's why you have a governor in New Jersey. You have a governor in Colorado. You have a governor in California. You have a governor in Michigan. You have a governor in Michigan. You have a governor in what other state? All of these Democratic governors now got a taste of power. Not about the science, not about safeguarding us, not about protecting us. It says here, a citizen who adopts in this way is teaching power what it can do. So when you comply, when we allow them to do what they're doing, we're giving them the taste of power. That's why today there was a text message, a Twitter message that went out from Governor Murphy saying, oh, some of you can play sports. Now he's going to tell you some of you can go to the bathroom. But it's our fault.
Yeah.
Dr. Martin Luther King said, where do we go from here? Chaos or community?
Yes, I love that.
Chaos or community? That's the big question. So now, because of what we're doing, we're giving government officials a taste of tyranny and power, right? Because of us complying, not fighting back. We're giving them the ability. They love it. They won't let it go. So forget about science. Forget about, true medicine. Forget about being healthy. Forget about all those things. We have now given them a taste of power. So we actually literally deserve what we get. So Martin Luther King says, because, a lot of people always want to bring him back, wheel him out to give them cover. He was actually against all of this. He would have never supported the way Black Lives Matter is engaged right now. What about Black lives have value? But my life has value. I don't need you to tell me, Stephanie, and I don't need the world to tell me that Black lives matter. Obviously, this country knows and this world does, because we're the Black bodies that fuel this global economy and still are fueling it in Africa, fueling it all over the world. So he says, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? I dare say we have not answered that question. And in our community, he was just not asking us that. He was asking the whole world that. He was asking the great powers of his time. If you don't conform to a healthy community, you best to understand we're going to be dealing with chaos. And in the next 6 months, if we've seen the damage thus far, in the next 6 months, if we don't get past our prejudices, if we don't get past our indifferences that we've been indoctrinated to think we have, if we don't get past all of the garbage that they're throwing at us right now, guess what? Power will win and we will lose, and our future will be permanently destroyed. Your children will not have a life. Your children will not exist. All of the work that your founding fathers and my founding fathers fought for, your founding fathers fought to get here, my founding fathers are still fighting for their full citizenship. It is all over. It's done. And you only have yourself to blame. Don't blame me. Don't blame Stephanie, because Stephanie, you're standing on the island by yourself. The people that I've been going around the country, they're standing out there by themselves. And you know what? Mahatma Gandhi said, you don't feel frightened to stand out there by yourself. You should give your life for what you believe in. Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, so now all of these men that we get in front of meetings and get in front of rooms and we talk about, they would be absolutely out there on the front lines with us right now. Yeah. The madness of the crowds, right? The madness of the crowds. And guess what? We have to push against that group of people, because that herd mentality is going to destroy this country. And we will never be able to get to the place that everybody professes they want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
It has all been a big con job. It's a lie. Now, all of a sudden, you got Black people. Every day I get up, Kevin, things have always been working against us. But wait a minute. I agree. I can break that down. I can go over here and pull all the stuff out and show you. But let's talk about the struggles we're having in our own community. Right. They say if I talk about Black on Black crime, that's detaching from the horrors of crime that has been perpetrated against Black Americans. No, that's bull crap. I can chew gum and walk at the same time, as one of my friends used to say. I can run and talk at the same time. I could look at my phone and write something, because we're multitasking now, right? So I can have that discussion, but also have this discussion. And guess what? If we don't have that discussion in our communities, we will always be the tool for somebody else's power. We will always be the most manipulated people on the planet, and we will never attain the things that our founding fathers fought for us to be able to attain. We thought we were going to have more political power was going to make a difference. We thought that we were going to be able to, all those things we fought for, guess what? We dropped the ball. Martin said again, chaos or community. And I dare say right now we're in chaos.
We are in chaos. So we need to get back to community. You need to get out there. You need to vote based on matters that are of importance to you, based on policies of the elected officials that are up there for office. Do not just rely on mainstream media. Do not rely on the things that you're seeing on the news. You need to do the work yourself. We've become way too reliant as a society on what the junk box tells us is the right thing to do, on what's important, on what we should look like, on what we should be driving, on the types of houses that we should be living in. I mean, literally, that box rules us. So we need to shut off the junk box. We need to take to really looking. I mean, you can search up any single piece of legislation that Donald Trump has created, that Kamala Harris or Joe Biden has created. Really do the work to see who is going to create the world that we want to raise our children in. And that is really what it boils down to. Do you want your children to be grown up in the society ruled by fear, where they're masked, where they're taken out of school, where they're taught to fear each other? Or do you want to grow up in a society where humans embrace one another, where we can be a community, where we can have these difficult conversations in a non-confrontational way and teach our children to do the same, not create this us versus them mentality that is currently happening in the education cartel, like Kevin calls it. So there has never been a more important time to get involved in the conversation. And like I say all the time, I never expected to be engaged in these political discussions. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I would have a segment called Eyes Wide Open, Politics in New Jersey, and I'd be having these conversations, I would have told you that you were out of your mind. But you evolve as a human, and especially when you have a child, there is absolutely nothing that I will not do to protect my child. And every part of my mama bear instinct is activated right now. My family, your family, our families are in danger. We are in danger of losing the very fabric of what makes this country free, of what makes this country great, and of what makes us a connected human society. So I implore each and every one of you to do your homework, to meditate with this one, to pray on it, to really look at what it is that's going to create the best situation for our children. And as always, Kevin, I thank you for being willing to go there, for being willing to be raw and real and honest, and to put yourself out there and have these conversations. What we just did is so important. So I appreciate you having the courage to come on with me to hear this, because, hey, I got to tell you, you're a bad young lady. I like you very much. I love you. Listen, the people that I've met in the last several months that has just given me the energy. I never thought that I would be doing this. I felt this way all my life, but I just never thought at this moment. And so, and I got to tell you, Stephanie, you show a lot of courage, and a lot of people would not want to get on the show and have this conversation with me. And I got to be honest with you. I'm not a people pleaser. So if you don't agree with me, who cares? Say it.
No. But who cares? Because you go look outside the window, look at the conditions that speak for themselves. Yeah. So I really am not that kind of person that gets up in the morning and worry about, what Betty thinks about me. I have to live in my truth. I have to live in what my parents taught me. I grew up, I happen to have wonderful parents. I grew up with thousands of people. You know, they taught me how to live in my truth, how to be independent, how to understand ownership is key, understand what my community. You can, all of these talking heads you see on TV, they're working for another group of people that are telling them to lie to us every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of courage for a young lady like you to get on a show like this and have this sensitive conversation with me, a Black American male. I come from a completely different point of view, but we do share one thing. We do understand that we're fighting for our children.
Yes. And that connects us at a level that's so much bigger than the color of our skin or what background we come from. Because at the end of the day, we want the same thing. And that's what I want everyone to get.
Absolutely.
That's
well, I love you. I adore you.
I love you. Thank you so much for being here.
With this new book.
What is it? Oh, On Tyranny. Who's it by? Your screen is still a little fuzzy, but I'm going to put it in the comments that we have.
Wow, that's that new camera I have.
I know. You got to do something with that camera.
I'm going to clean it again.
Who's the author?
Timothy Snyder.
Okay, I'm putting it in the comments.
See, I try to leave stuff for people to read because it gives them
I think it's
power. It empowers them. So it's not enough just to talk. You got to point them to something.
Yes.
You know.
And we don't want to read. We just want to be fed what we have to do and what we should be thinking. So it's
we
time
want to listen to Rachel Maddow.
Yep. So thank you so much, Kevin, for being here. I so appreciate it.
I love you.
I love you. And we're going to continue to have these hard conversations. If you're not currently signed up for my email list, please sign up. We know that censorship is happening real time here on Facebook and all these other social media platforms. So we need to make sure in the face of censorship that we have the ability to be in contact with one another. I posted the link in the comments. Please make sure that you're on the email list. And if you have not yet signed up for Brio TV, we are streaming on Brio TV right now. And the reason that I stream on Brio TV each and every time I do a show with Kevin or anybody else is because I know that I do not have to worry about censorship on Brio TV. It is the golden spear of Truth TV. It seeks to become the alternative to the fake news media. And in the next year, you're going to see some pretty amazing things. So become a founding subscriber. As of right now, your subscription dues will go towards building out this amazing platform and making it even greater than it already is. With the discount code Freedom Warriors, you'll get a discount from $14.99 a month to $9.99 a month. So go on, check it out. You can see all the live streams, even if you're not a member, but there's some protected content there for people who are. So get on there and become part of the change that we want to see in Truth Television. And keep these conversations going. Take the example that Kevin and I have set today to know that we can have the difficult conversations and we can do it really successfully. We can bring out points that maybe you haven't seen, but you have to be bold. You have to be brave. You have to be the change that you wish to see in the world. And it's not always easy, but I can promise you it is always worth it. So stay involved in the conversation. Know that Kevin and I are sending you all so much love, so much light, so much strength. And I'm praying for a good outcome on Election Day. But we need all of you to get out there, to register to vote if you have not, and to vote based on the issues, not based on your own personal opinions about whoever it is that's in office. Really get in touch with the issues that are of importance and look at the voting records. It is the most important election in our history. So be part of it. Thank you again, Kevin, for being here. I love you. And we will be back again, I'm sure, with some other segment on politics in New Jersey.
I have to get on the phone with Premier now. She's going to kill me. I got a long day. I'm going to be on all night.
Lord. Make sure you get some water and use the bathroom between.
Right. And I'm going to fix this camera. I'll talk to you later.
Clean it up. I'll talk to you later. Thank you, everybody.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.